well, let's go ahead and get into some of these topics we got. We got some pretty deep topics today. So why don't you start us off?
Truth, lies, shenanigans.
You got the dark side of horse racing.
Oh, I do. I do. So I'm sad to report that another horse has been killed after it was injured in a chuck wagon race at the Calgary Stampede. The injury resulted due to a collision on the track with another wagon. But what is chuck wagon racing, you might ask? So, as you can see from the image, one rider commands the chuck wagon, and then there are 2 to 4 other riders known as outriders, each riding a thoroughbred following the chuck wagon, acting as support crew. Well, this harkens to a time when you had to break camp and get out in a moment's notice. Those days are a little bit behind us. But for each race, there's a maximum of up to 4 teams on the track. And a race starts with a procedure called breaking the camp, where the outriders, the support riders, throw a stove onto the wagon. And if there's up to 4 riders, then they throw the camp poles on. Semantics. But after that, then the chuck wagon and the riders have to do a figure-8 pattern and hit the track around 2 barrels. Um, and then the first across the line with the least amount of time penalties wins. So the Vancouver Humane Society has actually recorded more than 70 horse deaths in the Stampede chuck wagon races over the last couple of decades.
How
Now,
many?
this can
70?
over 70, yeah. So this can be as a result of fractured legs, broken backs, heart attacks. In 2012, 3 horses died in a crash after the lead suffered an aneurysm and pulled the others down with it when it collapsed. So, in fact, there have only been 5 Calgary Stampedes with an asterisk over the last 2 decades where the chuck wagon race did not result in a horse fatality. So that was 2003, 2004, 2016, and no fatalities in 2020 because it was canceled due to COVID. And in 2021, things were scaled back and there was no chuck wagon racing. So no fatalities then either. But 2019, 6 fatalities. So, is it time to retire a long-standing tradition of racing sentient animals for human entertainment?
I think we should start with Dr. J, our veterinarian.
I
Well,
know, right?
this is always a definitely a hard one because I think that you have two sides of the story here. One is definitely you want to provide the safest environment for these pets. Two, we got to remember that they are beasts of burdens, and some of them are doing what they love to do.
Mhm.
That this is, what they were trained to do and bred to do. It's always a hard time when a pet gets injured, but it is especially in horse racing because the solution for most of that is that you put them down, that there is not coming back from it. Um, I think that, if they, hopefully they're doing the studies to see, A, can they somehow make this safer? Because here's the other part of it for the human side. I mean, although on one hand it's for human entertainment, humans are raggedy. They don't tend to care about things unless they can feel emotionally attached to them.
Mm.
And so, it is something to say that, hey, this is what these animals do. They are beasts of burden. They, do work, and to showcase that work allows humans to see the beauty in an animal doing what it's bred to do at its best, but at the same time, it'll also let them see, hey, there is dangers to it, and that's the side that people don't like. They don't like the side that the animal gets hurt, but the reality is, oftentimes, in doing its job for people and for animals, you can get hurt. The downside for a horse is that it often, ends in them having to be put down. So I think that, on one hand, if this cannot safely continue, then, stopping it for the horse's sake would be the best thing. But if they can find a way for it to safely continue, then it can be used, continue to use as education on how to treat a horse or what a horse goes through, to make people aware of the animal side.
Man,
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I know that researchers at the University of Calgary are looking at ways of improving the health and safety and performance of the horses at the Stampede. So they're looking at surfaces that the horses run on, and just to see if that's a way to reduce leg fractures. So there is community involvement in trying to figure it to make things better. And I appreciate what you're saying that they are beasts of burden doing what they do. But when I see wild horses running out and running with their friends, yeah, they're going to run full out until they're done. And they don't have 120 pounds of human asshole riding on them either, driving them to go faster. And pulling a chuck wagon isn't a natural activity for a horse to do. So I guess that's where I struggle with it, is that this is the chuck wagon race has just been a long-standing tradition, and it's not necessarily a natural thing. You know, pulling, competitive pulling, I get it because they're strong horses, but just this full-out racing, neck and neck while you're hauling, it's proven to be dangerous and fatal year over year.
I mean, I have to. I would. Let me just jump in here real quick. I want to. I tend to agree with what Dr. J is saying. I mean, I understand these sports aren't necessarily the best thing, but I feel like if we instead focus on the safety of the horses as opposed to, the entertainment value, the horses are being bred. They're alive for the purpose of, you know, racing. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't even be bred. Um, but you know, my dog likes to pull. I have a Bernese Mountain Dog. My dog loves to pull, and that's something he loves to do. I've been trying to find a wagon for him to do it. They're like super expensive for some reason, but but those are things that they love to do, and the horse may love racing, but I think the problem is focusing on, and the problem needs to be focused on treating the horses well. Making sure that if we're going to do this, if we're going to have them doing this activity, that it's safe for the horses, and that clearly it isn't currently. And
And
that's where the problem lies.
there are other safe activities for the horses that are entertaining, that are educational. There are other types of racing that they can engage in that is much safer. It's educational. And I mean, believe me, like chuck wagon racing, what we're talking about is the tip of the iceberg as far as horse deaths in horse racing. This is just a sliver of it. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like a very vain enterprise that, we can be so aloof and callous about running these animals into the ground, literally.
Yeah, if that's what's
Yeah, I
happening,
mean,
that's the problem.
it's,
But
it's
not
definitely, I
necessarily
guess.
this race itself. Good. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, I think that definitely, I mean, dealing with horses that have raced and dealing with horse racing and knowing all of the thing. I mean, it's a hard thing, because one is I always think like age, like the age that they start racing these horses is not ideal for the actual age for them to actually be racing, but it's sort of like humans with an athlete, like that's when you are young in your prime, but you are not physiologically enough to truly be doing some of the hard work. So that's one of the big things is like, let's look at the age of these horses when you're running them. And then there are other things like warrers and a bunch of other diseases that horses can get with racing that cause a lot of problems. And I think that, it's a it's a hard ethical question, because on one hand, I mean, I know like, working when I was in vet school, we were near a racetrack, so we got a lot of those horses, and for various different things. And there is immense beauty in a horse running full out, and
Mm.
just that horse is absolutely gorgeous, doing what it's bred to do. But at the same time, it's so hard on the body, and you're like, you want to love them and hug them and spoil them and all, but they are beast of burden. And the thing is that they are not treated like your dogs and your cats and your rabbits. They are treated as a like equipment. And it's
Commodity.
kind of yeah, and it's kind of hard, because the person that that loves this horse isn't necessarily the person that owns this horse.
Mm,
And when it comes down to a lot of money, and that
that's the biggest
it,
driver.
it
Yeah.
comes down like, are you going to really spend $20,000 on a surgery to fix a horse if the horse is only worth $15,000? No, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Um, and like I said, on one hand, it's like you want to make them safe, the other hand is that people need to be aware of these things, and the only way to make them aware is to actually show them, like, this is what horses can do. So it's a double-edged sword.
Any last thoughts, Rob?
It's really, the Stampede does keep bringing new safety measures in. I think in the image there were 4 chuck wagons that were racing, so now they're reducing the number of wagons on the track, and just with partnerships through the university, just trying to make things better. So I mean, I can applaud that. It's just the death toll seems to be unreasonably high for this event. So I'm my issue isn't with the horse racing or the horses doing what they're bred to do. It's with this specific event because the death toll seems to be so much higher and seems to be so very difficult and taxing. I know watching Clydesdales come by pulling a great big wagon that's fully loaded, that's impressive shit because that's a massive animal doing what it's supposed to do. But it's not running full out while it's pulling it, and it's not pulling it against a pack of other Clydesdales. It's, just
It's
make
Yeah.
it safe for the animal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the problem is the event. I mean, they need better rules. It sounds like. Yeah.
Mhm. Or just make it exhibition. Like, just,
Yes.
they did this, but not so full
Send
out.
one team on the track, right? Exhibition. Send one team on the track and go, wow, okay. And then, do a couple of heats and then post the times. All right.
Mhm.
Just change the event, the
Yep.
format.
Yeah.
All right, I got a comments online. Oh, Jose. This makes me sad. These poor horses. And why do we have these events for entertainment? No thanks. I'd rather not see an animal die as an event.
No.
All right.